Hi all, I'm Sach Fernando from Melbourne One TV. We are a Melbourne-based multicultural TV station. And here with me today, I have Professor Tissa Wijeratne, Professor of Neurology at University of Melbourne and World Brain Day Chair, to talk about migraine and generally about the brain. Thank you so much, Tissa, for putting down this time for us. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Sach. It's a pleasure to be here.
No problems, Professor Tissa. I know you've been quite influential in Melbourne, and not even in Melbourne, or in Australia, providing migraine awareness to a lot of the people. You are the founder of the Migraine Foundation Australia as well. So I'd like to ask you, for someone who's not aware of migraine, what can you say? Like, what is migraine?
That's a great question. Let's start with the human brain. Now, you ask those questions from me because your brain is working. I answer these questions hopefully correctly because my brain is working. Our brain is such an amazing organ. In fact, our brains basically make who we are. It is like everybody uses computers, right? You have hardware and software in a computer. So it's all if your brain is not functioning well, it is almost like you have a fanciful screen and rest of the other things, but there's no working hardware in that computer. So in human beings, the real hardware is brain. It basically makes us who we are, how we behave, whether we do right thing or wrong thing. Even during this pandemic, you see all kind of people. Some people behaving completely stupid and bizarre, but majority of us behave very well. That is because most of us have normal functioning brain, at least at that particular time.
Yep.
Now, coming to migraine, we have to explore the way that brain works a little bit more to understand what migraine is. Human brain is such a sophisticated computer, and there are about 100 billion biological wires packed into this computer for brain to do its work. It is also important to understand that these 100 billion biological wires talk to each other through chemical connection, which are known as synapses, and there are about 100 trillion such connections.
Wow.
That's huge. So basically, the way that human brain works, when we get angry, when we feel loved, or when we express love, or when we enjoy music, when we eat food, when we criticize somebody, when we get jealous, when we get angry, the chemical activity and electrical activity both changes in human brain. The disorders that are affecting brain and nervous system at large is actually the leading cause of disability to mankind, womankind, humankind worldwide. Now, coming back to your question, what is migraine? Migraine is a disorder where you either have changes in electrical activity of the brain or chemical activity of the brain, or both due to genetic predisposition. I myself is a patient suffering from migraine at times, not right now. That's why I'm answering these questions correctly. But when I do get migraine attacks, I do get any one of those two things or both of them, changes in chemical activity or electrical activity. So to summarize answer to your question, is migraine is the commonest brain disorder that is affecting human beings without having any any respect to your color, race, education level, bank balance, country that you live in, religious belief, without having any respect due to your genetic makeup, due to a change in chemical activity or electrical activity, or both in the brain temporarily.
I see. Yeah, certainly. I mean, now, when you talk about the chemical activity, how much do we know about it? Like, doctors, have they come across this behavior? How further have we come compared to, let's say, 100 years ago? What progression have we made on that?
That's a great question also, Sach. In fact, when you look back history of medicine, obviously history of Western medicine is only a few thousand years old. Since Hippocrates, we sort of build what we know as Western medicine today. But if you go to Eastern medicine, the history goes even back, 5,000 plus years back. Both systems talked about migraine type features over thousands and thousands of years ago. Coming back to what progress we made good progress, but we are not done yet. There have been significant development in Western medicine in particular during last 50 years or so to understand what is happening in migraine. We know for certainty that it is a bona fide, legitimate medical disorder. Just because you have migraine doesn't mean that you are weak or some sort of a inferior to others. It's a typical, legitimate, known medical disorder. We know that for certainty. We also understand most of the chemical activities that are happening. We have seen almost all phases of migraine through sophisticated brain scanning, well published, but we still have a lot of work to do also. We also have very good treatment at this point of time. Again, that said, they still have a long way to go. Having said that, I also have to tell you the bad aspect of this. The community as well as medical community in the sense lay community as well as medical community, there's a problem with migraine and headache disorders in particular. Migraine is the most neglected, least respected, worst managed medical disorder all over the world, certainly in Australia, certainly in Melbourne also. There are reasons for that. The reasons behind that, as far as I can see, are there's a very strong lay model for headache. Let's say both of us have a bad day today at work as well as at night due to whatever the reason. So tomorrow morning, if we wake up with migraine type symptoms, the quickest thing that we would blame is it is because of the crap day yesterday that I had, either my wife or my work or other things that has happened. We have a lay explanation behind why we are experiencing headache.
I see.
So as a result of that, we don't go and see medical help most of the time. And when we do go and seek medical help, even in Australia, unfortunately, almost 7 to 8, 9 out of 10, this is not published, this is what I have observed over the last 10, 15 years, you get the endorsement of that lay explanation. Oh, it is because of stress, so it is because of your period, or it is because of your work. So as a result of both these things, there's lack of awareness. As a result of that, despite the progress, despite the long, rich history, this disorder continue to be mismanaged worldwide, certainly in Australia also, despite we made good progress in recent times.
Thank you very much, Tissa. So I think I understand what you're trying to say is that a lot of people misidentify a headache, so perhaps they don't realize it's a migraine, and people probably are not aware of it, or they don't take it as serious. Is that where you're coming at here? Or
Absolutely. And to make matters worse, doctors, including some of my fellow neurology colleagues, this is not a criticism, this is the reality. The doctors have this idea that, oh, headache is not a serious illness. What is migraine? Migraine is not a serious illness. Funnily enough, regularly when I do ward rounds at my public hospitals, in the middle of a very busy ward round, when I sort out very complex migraine patients, almost 50% of the patients do get upset and angry with me and my colleagues when we say that I think the explanation behind your symptoms is due to migraine. Many of these patients get upset saying that, what do you mean? This must be a serious disorder. So the migraine is not regarded as a serious disorder even by patients. These are undiagnosed patients, of course. But the reality is most of the junior doctors who train with me and undergoing training with me know this. Sorting out complex migraine patients is never easy. It takes time to take a detailed history. It takes time to examine them and rule out that there's nothing else wrong with them. It takes time to explain things to them, and it takes time to drive home how to manage this disorder. So all these reasons make it a perfect troublesome disorder to be continue to be neglected and mismanaged the globally. It's hard to understand. Say for an example, if you become interested in neurology, you would assume that as a young doctor, you become fascinated of human mind and human brain. That's why you choose such a career, because you have to work hard to become a specialist. 10 years work of hard labor.
I see.
And then for you to not to be interested in such a fascinating disorder, which basically allow you to study all aspects of human brain, I am at a loss to explain. From the other hand, it's such a fascinating disorder to be interested in and study, but yet the enigma is many people become disinterested in it, and as a result of that, mismanagement continue to occur globally.
Okay. Yeah. So when it comes to migraine, let's say for a person who has a headache, how would you distinguish the difference of maybe a headache, a normal headache, from a migraine? How can you differentiate?
I think that is a great question also. I'm going to ask this question, but the first and foremost, one of the most important thing is with regard to health, with regard to any illness, you make the diagnosis by seeing a properly qualified doctor who take a good history on you, examine you, and then tell you what is wrong with you. And migraine is no different from that at all. So nobody should make a self-diagnosis of migraine by watching this program. What I would like you to do is, if you think that you have migraine, having watched this program, make an appointment to your family doctor. Make sure that he or she is interested in it. Chances are they are not, but you have to advocate for yourself as a patient. So you make them interested in it. You tell them that I watch this program and I strongly suspect I have features of migraine, but I want you to make sure that you examine me. And
what would be those clear symptoms, for a viewer to...
I'm coming to that.
Yeah.
And then you get that person to diagnose. So now to answer your question, one of the fascinating things with migraine and other headache disorders is migraine is a headache with a lot of features. It is like when you have a pageant, especially in Asian countries, they use dressed up elephants to walk on those pageants. In most Asian countries, they also use, or they used to use, some of these elephants to work in the field. Of course, those elephants are not dressed, right? It's like you have two types of elephants. The elephants who dressed up very well, decorated to walk on a pageant. And then you have those elephants who are not dressed up, but they just walk to get the work done. So the migraine and other headaches, migraine is like a dressed up elephant. So there are a lot of other features that are dressing this headache up. So what are those features? Say for an example, when I do get migraine headaches, I do have other features. I get nauseous. I get sensitized to light. In other words, I don't like to be in a lit up environment. I prefer to keep my eyes closed and in a dark environment. I don't like noise when I have a typical migraine headache, because noise hurts me. I don't like to touch my hair as it hurts me. Those are some of the features. And nausea or nauseous feeling is also a similar feature. Sometimes patients get, I don't get them, but some patients do get them. Sometimes the headache is associated with tingling sensation, or funny, creepy, crawly sensation in arms or legs or part of the face, typically spreading from one area to the other. So the problem is there are other brain disorders which cause similar thing also. That's why it is important for people to not to make a self-diagnosis and let properly qualified doctors make the diagnosis. So as you can see, there are a lot more features associated with migraine, pretty much like a dressed up elephant. In other words, when you go for a party, you dress yourself up, but when you stay at home, you dress casually. So the normal headache is without having much features, but your typical migraine headache is full of features. And these features, I only mention a very tiny bit of them. There are a lot of other things with regard to your mood, with regard to your speech, with regard to your vision. Pretty much every single thing that your brain does can be sensitized and optimized or reduced or exaggerated when you are going through an acute attack of migraine. And the other thing is typical migraine episode consists of multiple phases. We can cover that later on this discussion if we were interested in it.
Yes, certainly. Yeah, we might talk about it because I did some research as well. And I realized there's the 4 stages where you have the prodrome, aura, migraine attack, and the postdrome. Would you mind please explaining about that for the viewers to understand?
Correct. That's a great question also. Not all patients with migraine get all 4 stages. Some patients get only the postdrome. So those of your viewers who might have seen a pageant, like a typical cultural traditional pageant in a temple or kovil or mosque, you would see that different components of those pageant. You have the person who carry whips first. It's almost like way before you see the pageant, the pre-monitor is the evidence that there is a pageant coming. I think traditionally that is how those things were established when the technology was not available. So the prodrome of migraine is pretty much similar to that. So it's a warning that an acute attack of migraine is on the way. So the typical prodrome, I do get prodrome, not all the time, but sometimes, is like this. So you finish your day's work and you come home, and you generally you don't have a sort of desire to binge eat or binge drink. But on a particular day, your brain might tell you that go and open up that cupboard and have a piece of have a piece of that nut or this nut or biscuit, chocolate, or have a glass of wine, or have the piece of cheese, and you get this desire to binge eat, or you might develop excessive desire to yawn, or you might feel washed out, tired feeling, or you might feel anxious, or you might feel depressed without having any specific reason behind that. So there are multiple the symptoms that could occur during this prodrome. So the prodrome can last anything from few hours, sometimes up to a day, sometimes only a few minutes. So most patients who wake up with an acute attack of migraine in the morning, chances are guaranteed that they do suffer from prodrome the night before. Not everyone, but most of them. About 15% of these patients do go and get what is known as aura. So the aura can be visual or other. So the visual aura would be you might develop the zigzags or shimmering or flashing lights on one area of your vision, and then it might gradually spread to involve half of your vision or complete vision. Or you might get tingling sensation in one arm, one area, then gradually spread to involve whole arm or one half of the arm. I have a patient who get aura. Basically, he get this tingly sensation starting from his thumb, go up to the face, and then come back to the thumb within 15 minutes. That's all that he get. He doesn't even get an acute attack. Then that's about 15%. So most of these patients, the aura lasts for about 20 minutes, but occasionally it can last longer. I have a patient who get aura lasting a day or two, causing loss of vision, pretty much making him significantly disabled. That's all he gets. He doesn't get headaches. Then the majority of the patient get what is known as migraine acute attack. So what your viewers commonly know is severe throbbing headache, sometimes develop into maximum severity within half an hour to 1 hour. Sometimes it takes 4 to 6 hours. This is a typical throbbing headache with trouble tolerating light, trouble tolerating noise. You get nauseous feeling. You prefer to sleep. You prefer to not to move because movements hurt. You become sensitized to touch. You become sensitized to light. You become sensitized to noise. You become irritable. You get angry easily. The postdrome basically lasts anything from a few hours to few days. Acute attack usually lasts for about few hours to a few days also. Typically less than 72 hours though. Postdrome can last longer, sometimes days, sometimes up to a week or so even. Postdrome can make you feel like washed out, drained, significantly tired, and your mood can go basically gangbusters with really down, depressed, washed out feeling, really sort of a lot of neuropsychiatric type symptoms with postdrome. So as you can see, although this is neglected, right now there are over 5 million Australians who are going through this suffering quietly, probably not even knowing what they are going through.
Fair enough. Yeah, thanks a lot for that explanation. Quite thoroughly, you did quite well explained, and I think we do get a massive insight to understanding migraine. I might also move on to this day and age, like today's world with technology. Everyone uses a phone. We are most of the time up to 8 to 10 hours. We are sitting in front of a computer, working in an office or at home. What sort of impact do you think the technology, or using technology-based equipment, screens, smartphones, computers, laptops, how has that affected for migraine? And you think if you look back at 10 years to now, you think there are more migraine patients now compared to 10 years ago, or maybe 20 years ago, where the technology was not as developed as today?
You ask a great question, and there are part of the answer that I can't give at this moment of time, as we came up with a new explanation of a headache disorder and a new terminology, and it's a multi-author paper, and it is being submitted as we speak. In fact, just before I came on the interview, I signed off my agreement. We said that I'm not going to talk about it until it goes through proper review process. So maybe we'll come back to that at a future interview once the paper is out. But the talking about migraine, the current day living, has it increased the number of migraine patients globally? I don't think we have data to answer that question correctly. We haven't studied that. But my natural instinct would tell you probably the ease. I think this day and age we subject ourselves to a lot more stress than our ancestors did. But having said that, our ancestors had to deal with a different kind of stress. Say, for example, trying to find food, trying to keep shelter for children, but they didn't have to deal with Facebook, Twitter, 24/7 information news cycle, multiple jobs, as we wanted to have a lot more things at our hand now compared to then. But so the answer is probably yes, but we don't know for certainty. I think it is important to remind our viewers and make sure that we drive home the message that migraine is not a disorder that is caused by wrong way of living or screens. Migraine is a genetic disorder where we are born to this world to generate all these symptoms easily when we have the gene compared to when we don't have the gene. However, we are complex animals with constant involvement with our environment. We live in a complex environment. Therefore, our interactions with environment must be contributory to exacerbate the way that we suffer or way that we respond to particular disorders. In that context, I am sure if you ask from 100 migraine patients, almost 100 of them would tell you that the different screen times, different screens, different screensavers, different lighting, different work experience is contributory to more headaches. And also, I remember reading a publication coming from Philippines because of outsourced work, and many people with migraine working in those environments were reporting that they were experiencing more episodes than before, to the extent that during our last World Brain Day campaign, we had to run a different advocacy agenda to recognize this and support them and optimize workplace. So I know I didn't give you a straightforward answer.
No, I think that's a good answer for the viewers. Because I think, like you said, we can't definitively say that the numbers have gone up, because there are a lot of variations, like you're saying. Because and we can't isolate each variable, so it gets a bit hard to compare. Therefore, which I agree with you, and there is some sort of impact, like you said. So I think the viewers would understand where you're coming at. And Tissa, I think that gives us a lot of information today, and thank you very much for your time. And we would like to, again, after that paper that you mentioned about, we might have another chat later on, if there's any information you think is good for our viewers.
Oh, the 100%. Before that paper, we have a lot to talk about migraine. We didn't talk about the things that we must do to deal with it. There are a whole lot of things. We have a couple of weeks worth things to talk about. Let's see how much interest out there for this the interview, and if there is a strong interest, I mean, you started this on a very pertinent, critically important topic. We must remember that migraine is a disorder that is linked with almost every other disorder that is affecting human beings. But there's a lot of lack of interest in this field, and the only way that we can resurrect interest is through the community outpouring interest on this field and forcing doctors to be interested in it and bring them with us. So we must talk about this few more times.
Certainly, Professor, we'll definitely get in touch with you. And thanks again. So we had Professor Tissa Wijeratne, Professor of Neurology at University of Melbourne and World Brain Day Chair. Thank you again, Professor. We definitely get in touch with you. And I'd like to sign off from Melbourne One TV. Please give us a thumbs up and subscribe. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having us. Have a great day.
No problems. Thanks, Tissa.